Episode 8 of the Average Joe Sports Show. Chris Schmidt with you. And despite it being a bye week, we hear from Coach Rhule.
Mitch Sherman here. We're going to talk about fumbling and Anthony Grant.
Hey, it's Bill Doleman, and we're going to do everything we can to help Elijah get Jeff Sims on the field.
Running back, Bill? That's all I know. We'll also hit some Pringles, Doritos, Munchies, and a whole lot more.
Episode 8 is here. It's the Average Joe Sports Show. Chris Schmidt, Bill Doleman, Mitch Sherman, Elijah Herbel. You can find us on YouTube, the AJ Sports Show. Type that in, watch the episode, or just check it out on Twitter, the AJ Sports Pod. Give us a follow there. Spotify, iTunes is also where you can download the show. Fellas, it's a bye week, so I was going to say let's all book a tea time, but I think there's rain this weekend, but plenty of college football that'll keep our attention anyway.
Well, we got to be here, so the work never stops for us, even on a bye week.
I mean, it may rain later this week, but look outside now.
Oh.
We're taping this on Tuesday. I think 70 for the high today. Great day to golf. Let's just cut this thing off and go.
and here's the thing. I'm wearing my bowling shirt today. It's bowling league night. And this is a selling point for bowling is it's not dependent on the weather. It was raining last week. Doesn't matter. It's a perfect 72 degrees in the lanes, you know? Wintertime, there's a lot more poor weather in Nebraska than great weather. So you get all year to bowl in Nebraska, the one exception being whenever the AC goes down, which did happen once a couple of weeks ago. But we made it through. Maybe we schedule a time at the bowling alley.
Sounds like a great team-building opportunity.
Or we could just grill out steaks and some beer.
There's the idea.
I'll do that.
There's the idea.
You bring the pitchers from the bowling alley. I'll get the steaks and fire the grill up.
You should imagine me
Casa de Schmidt
in my car holding pitchers of beer. Not only is that a felony, it's also a hell of a
talent.
You had to even hold with no tops. And have you guys seen that video of that guy who's driving around with a pot of gumbo?
No.
Oh, that's one of the funniest videos of all time. He's like on the phone.
Is it riding shotgun or is it in his lap while he's driving?
He's in the back seat of the car, but it's in his lap. He's got like a towel in his lap with just a pot of gumbo, no top on. And it ends up spilling all over. It's one of the funniest videos of all time.
So don't
Clearly
fumble.
this is a bye week.
Yeah, don't fumble the jambalaya is what
I
he's
just think
saying.
of Kevin from The Office with
With the chili. It just let it go. I guess that's an easy way to transition into one of the topics from Matt Rhule, and that's fumbling.
Don't fumble the ball.
No.
That's Anthony Grant right now.
He even referenced the program. No one's carrying the ball around campus like they did in the program, a vintage early 90s movie.
Yeah, Matt Rhule visited with the media on Tuesday during this bye week in Lincoln, and one of the main topics of conversation was Anthony Grant and his fumbling issues, which have now popped up twice in late game crucial situations. One that contributed to Nebraska losing in the season opener against Minnesota, and then this last Friday night at Illinois, Anthony lost the handle on the ball again with about 4 minutes left when Nebraska seemingly is going in for like the fourth time to get the put away touchdown to make this thing a laugher, and he fumbles again. So the defense had to go out and get a stop to win the game, which they did. So Anthony Grant, I would say, is in a spot with Matt Rhule right now where he's going to have to prove something to the coach. And it doesn't really matter that Grant has this NFL pedigree as a running back and the ability to move the chains and do everything that Nebraska wants from that position. If he can't hold on to the rock, it's just the carries are gonna go down. The rushing attempts are gonna go down, and we'll see who Nebraska's got, whether it's freshmen or players at moving over from other positions, and as is the case with Josh Fleeks. But not a great spot for Anthony to be in midseason.
Well, would this be the time to seriously consider moving Jeff Sims to running back? Is that ever a question for you? You've heard fans say move him to tight end or move him to running back. At what point do you look at it and go, you know what? He has been pretty talented with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, that's too much of a video game move.
It is. I go Nebraska's running game for its ups and downs and a 3-3 record here at recess during the bye week. Think about what they're up against. Two others injured for the year. Emmett Johnson's looked good, but also had a fumble. Not to scarlet letter him at all. It's just one fumble. But the guy that has all sorts of ability and upside in Grant has continued to have this issue, and now we're talking Fleeks is the guy that is the other alternative, and it's really a dire situation for a team that wants to be a team that stops the run and runs the football.
Well, and that's why I say Sims, not to go back to this, because I know it's a harebrained scheme, but isn't the bye week 4 harebrained schemes? And who knows, maybe the guy doesn't want to play running back. I'd understand that completely, but like you got a week to prepare, and you look at the options in the running back room, and I think Jeff Sims is too talented of an athlete to keep him off the field behind Heinrich Haarberg. And the one question mark there is Heinrich Haarberg's health for the remainder of the season. You don't want to risk your backup quarterback in that way. At least that's what I'm going to call Jeff Sims as of right now, is the backup quarterback. You don't want to risk him considering how much Heinrich Haarberg likes to run the football and put himself in danger. But like at some point you look at how dire the situation is in the running back room and say, well, what's the solution?
Yeah, you find let's go find a 6'4" running back. I mean, this side of Derrick Henry, who's about that size, and they're just not out there. So, I mean, Sims is an athlete, but his athleticism, I think, is much more suited to play quarterback than running back.
Well, and he's a smart guy, or he wouldn't be a major college quarterback. But to say, okay, we're going to move you to this position, you're going to have to really simplify things and say, okay, this is the play. We know what you used to run, when we would call this, but here's what we need you to do. Grab the ball from the quarterback and go that way. Okay, that's the play call for you. If you were to make a position change like that, that's an off-season type move. If you ever make any move like that at all, the thing that I think has to be drilled into Anthony Grant's mindset is yes, fumbling the football is having some dire consequences for Nebraska. It certainly did in one particular game, and almost did in another game. But the issue really at this point in your career is for you, because his fumbling issues are costing him money, not NIL money. It's costing him draft status type money. Now, he's a talented running back. There's no question. He's got vision. He's got moves. When he is on, he looks like somebody who could certainly play on Sunday and carry the ball, maybe 8 to 12 times in an NFL game, and perhaps return kicks if they were able to develop that skill. But if you can't hold on to the football, you're not going to get any carries in the NFL, and you're going to go from 2nd to 7th to undrafted free agent and then playing in the spring.
Yeah, it's pretty much, I would say, already cost him. I don't know that there's a lot
totally
that Anthony Grant can do between now and the draft season to make up for what's happened here in 2 of the first 6 games. And, Rhule laid it out, I think, as simple as he could on Tuesday. And he said, you're not playing for Bill Belichick if you fumble the ball. You're not playing for Mike Tomlin if you fumble the ball. So, he's using this public forum, Rhule is, this public platform, to speak to Anthony Grant and all of the running backs at Nebraska about the importance. And he's telling these guys the same thing in practice, but it puts even more on them to work at this when he goes out and says it publicly and everybody knows. And it's an interesting tactic.
Can you think of another coach who has used that tactic with a specific player as much as he has with Anthony Grant in the fall camp? And after Minnesota, there was a lot of, I love him, and I know he loves the guy, but now it's direct, and it's saying, hey, I'm not telling him anything, not saying anything now that I haven't told him before, but can you recall of any coach doing that specifically with one player? And I agree that he's also talking to the rest of the running back room, that it's not just him. He's a senior. The rest of you guys need to pay attention too.
Yeah, I don't recall any instance, whether it's with the quarterback or anybody on a kicker, maybe. I think sometimes coaches get very, very plain and simple with kickers. If they're not making kicks, you got to make kicks in order to be the starter on this team. And coaches tend to get frustrated easily with kickers too, because, as they say, you have one job. But no, I don't know of anything with a running back or really any player on the offensive or defensive side that compares to this.
And you look at a guy in Grant that, can it be fixed? We talk about the offense taking a step, and, Rhule laid out a bunch today as we talked Tuesday with third down conversions and what's being tailored passing game-wise for Harburg. But what they got to do well moving forward for that 6 win or better, that trip to Phoenix, we're going to get into bowl munchies in a little bit, is run the football. And the guy that is all sorts of talented has got to come back and do it. A guy that we all covered and love catching up with that's kind of fixed to fumbling issues, Amir Abdullah. Mm-hmm. And he came back his senior season, and after a tough junior year from a fumbling standpoint, his senior season was, he had a couple still, but I just remember that Georgia game where he was able to really, despite their best efforts in a rain-soaked Gator Bowl, kind of prove to himself and others and turned himself into a second-round pick and is still playing.
Yeah, some of this with Grant, I think, has to do with the late-game situations, and that's where we've seen it at its worst against Minnesota and then against Illinois. So a couple things. One, in those situations where he's running the ball late in the game, the other team is more focused than ever at that point on stripping it because they're in a desperate spot. Both of those teams trailing Nebraska late. It is more important to try to generate a turnover than it is even to tackle the guy. Mm-hmm. So they're stripping, they're poking at that ball, and I think that's where Grant's issue gets exposed. And the way Rhule laid it out today is that he's holding the ball the wrong way, and that he gets in this habit where he holds it on the side, and it kind of exposes too much of the ball for those talented defenders who can tackle you and pull the ball out at the same time when they're really focused on that. It exposes that. So he needs to change the way, if you take Rhule at face value with what he said on Tuesday, Grant has to change the way that he's holding the ball and hold it more like Heinrich Harburg, who's got his hand over the top. Now, Heinrich, I think, holds it really high, which is sometimes looks strange when he's running, but it's effective. And, other than a snap here or there, he has been pretty sure-handed with the way that he's held on to it. So maybe the two of them can get together and find some way to meet in the middle with the way that they carry the thing.
You guys want to hear a fun stat here? And it's
sure.
Because there's a guy that in the NFL that carries the ball super high and tight almost perfectly. It's Christian McCaffrey. You ever watch him hold the football? It looks different because of how high and tight it is. It's just how they teach it to you in middle school. He has 3 career lost fumbles in the NFL across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons.
He has more injuries than fumbles.
More injuries than fumbles. And you have to note that he's played in 80 career games. So he's a little lower than some people who have played 7 seasons in the NFL, but across 80 career games, only 3 lost fumbles for Christian McCaffrey, and it's a case study in how he holds the football. Look at any picture of Christian McCaffrey online. If you just Google up Christian McCaffrey, you will see that ball high and tight across the chest, and he doesn't lose the ball. Then you compare that to Anthony Grant, it looks a little different.
Did you see him fumble on Sunday night against the Cowboys? Yeah.
I did, yeah.
It's funny you bring that up because he is so secure with the ball, and then he fumbled going for a touchdown on Sunday night when the Niners won big against the Cowboys. And what happened is he was rolling on top of the defender, and he had scored a touchdown the week before by rolling on top of the defender into the end zone. And the football karma came back and got him where he's rolling on top of the defender again, and the defensive player was able to rip that ball out. So, yeah, and Christian McCaffrey would be a great guy for Matt Rhule to use as an example for Anthony Grant when he talks about what you need to do as a running back. Rhule has a close connection with Christian McCaffrey, and the two of them, while they were together in Carolina in the past few seasons, Rhule brings McCaffrey up all the time. Not just about the way that his ball security, but more about just the way that he takes such great care in everything that he does with every little detail as it relates to his training, his body, his work ethic, and that's why you see the guy as the arguably the best running back in the NFL.
And Christian McCaffrey did not lose a single fumble while playing for Matt Rhule. There were some seasons that were plagued by injuries in there, so that should be noted, but Sunday night was McCaffrey's first lost fumble since 2018, his second year in the NFL.
Wow. But you go back in time and watch the highlights of the great running backs of the past who built the NFL. Walter Payton, the way he would run with that ball, either holding it, palming it, or the old what was the line? The bread of loaf.
Yes,
carrying it like a bread of loaf. Or Barry Sanders, he might have it way out as he was making one of his patented moves, or go back to college and Billy Sims and back in the day when you would watch the highlights, it was pretty freewheeling with the way guys carried the football. You don't see too many of them with that high and tight with the point covered and it's hugged up next to the shoulder pads.
The 3 points of contact.
That's just not very sexy. Well, Matt Rhule talked about the 5 points. We got a little dissertation today about how to carry the football with 5 points of contact, but it's just not the sexy way to carry it, right?
Well, Nebraska trying to get things figured out at running back. Turnovers are key. Also, youth at the wide receiver. This is the Average Joe Sports Show. You can find us on YouTube, the AJ Sports Show. Also on X, the AJ Sports Pod. Mitch Sherman, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Guys, fumbling a topic. Also, the need for those young wide receivers to step up. The other news today about Marcus Washington, done for the year. ACL, that hurts big time when he's been healthy. He's been pretty big from an explosive play standpoint, and Nebraska's going to need to, per Coach Rhule, find a way to get some explosive plays in the passing game.
Yeah, now you add Marcus Washington to the list that started with Xavier Betts before the season, and then Isaiah Garcia Castaneda in week 1. And then Ramir Johnson and Gabe Ervin in week 3. It's just been one after the other. Jeff Sims, of course, has now been out for 40 days by the time Nebraska plays again against Northwestern on Saturday the 21st. So one after another at these important spots on the offensive side, top guys at the important spots who've been lost for Nebraska. Eric Gilbert, we haven't mentioned, is somebody who they thought coming out of the spring was going to be a huge piece of the offense at the tight end spot. And, of course, he hasn't played because of the trouble that he's had off the field and the issue with his eligibility waiver that never came through. So Matt Rhule said on Tuesday this week that he's never been part of a team that had this many defections and injuries on the offensive side or on one side of the ball. And he praised the work that the coaching staff, the offensive coaching staff, has done to just make this thing even viable, that they're limited in what they can do offensively because of all of they were already thin. They were thin at wide receiver when Rhule took over. And when he signed that big freshman, that's why he had to sign a big freshman class with 5 or 6 wide receivers. And now you're in a situation halfway through the season when the 3 who were standing, a couple of the freshman wide receivers have moved to the defensive side, Jeremiah Charles and Bryce Turner. But you're in a spot 6 games into the season where Malachi Coleman, Jaden Doss, and Jalen Lloyd are all going to be needed to be key pieces in that wide receiver room. And, by the way, you've taken a cornerback, Tommy Hill, and brought him over to that side of the ball, and taken a walk-on, Ty Hahn, and made him a key piece of what you're doing at the wide receiver spot. So to say that it's makeshift is an understatement. And
not to be forgotten, Garrett McGuire is in his first season as Nebraska's receivers coach. That was a big, big topic of conversation when Matt Rhule hired him. What is he, 23, 24, younger than some of the players on the team. And there was a lot of question mark as to, why would you give this kid an opportunity with a job like this? And the job has just gotten harder and harder and harder week by week by week. But once he started to establish himself, Garrett McGuire, as a recruiter, the relationship that players started to talk about that they had with him, because he is very relatable to them generationally, there's a lot of respect for his knowledge. Of course, his dad's the head coach at Texas Tech, so he has the background. He has the respect of the Texas High School Coaches Association, which is so important to this Nebraska football program. So the talk about him being inexperienced and an unknown really has died down, and even so much so that nobody's really talking about it right now, how challenging his job is when he's lost so many key players along the way, and nobody talks about Garrett McGuire because he has earned the respect. I will say this, too. I think Nebraska is very fortunate to have Ron Brown still around. I don't know what Ron's capacity is as an analyst and what all they can and cannot do because, let's face it, that rule book is written in gray and very lightly in pencil. But to have him, former wide receivers coach with Nebraska, Also a former running backs coach with Nebraska. You mentioned the injuries to Johnson and to Irvin and the young players that they have there. To have his wisdom, his experience, his personality to guide in whatever way that they have to, I think that has been an invaluable resource. And Matt Rhule even talked about using Ron Brown in terms of implementing the option and using those receivers and convincing them they have got to be physical down the field and blocking. I think that's a big deal.
His name has come up a lot, and the main area where it's come up in public conversations has been in how he went and taught these coaches how to operate the option and how to incorporate that thing in midstream, where it was a very small piece of what Nebraska wanted to do coming into the season, maybe a little bit of zone read, but then as soon as those injuries started to pile up, they went to become more of a traditional not a traditional option team, but a team that ran some traditional option plays. I mean, it's not Air Force out there. Nobody's mistaking them for that. But they're running some old school Nebraska option. And Ron is the only guy on this staff who's coached that kind of football. So he's been coaching the coaches. And he's limited somewhat in what he can do with his contact with the players, but he can coach the coaches all day. So he spent time with Satterfield, with McGuire, even with Donovan Raiola and working on how the offensive linemen are supposed to structure things, and Josh Martin, the tight ends coach. Ron has coached tight ends also in his long career at Nebraska for 3 different head coaches. He worked for Tom, for Frank, for Bo. He worked for Frost, not in a full-time coaching role. So this is head coach number 5 that he's been under. So yeah, any way you cut it, he's an invaluable piece to what they've tried to do on the run here as a coaching staff. I will say this about Garrett McGuire, and I'm a believer. Take that, Dion, in Garrett McGuire. I think his future is limitless as far as how high he's going to go in the college game. I'd be surprised if he doesn't follow in his dad's footsteps and become a head coach at the Power 5 level. But he has got dealt a rough hand this year as a first-time position coach to say, you're now down to a converted walk-on, a slot receiver who's 5'8" that came via the transfer portal as a sixth-year senior, and then a bunch of true freshmen. So whatever the Nebraska receivers end up doing as far as production this year, if they don't just completely fall off the map and become a position that is contributing nothing, then Garrett McGuire has got more out of these guys than I think you could expect for someone in his spot. So the future of Garrett, his future's bright, but it's a difficult ask that he's facing right now.
Any other year in his college coaching career is going to be nothing like this. So comparatively, you've already been through the air quote potentially worst with availability and injury and experience. And you've had to kind of roll with the punches there. And let's talk about these freshmen. Let's talk about Doss. Let's talk about Lloyd. Let's talk about Coleman, because you saw quite a few snaps by Malachi last week. Lloyd's had some more time on the field, and Doss is coming back from injury. But can these guys realistically contribute in a manner where they'll threaten an opposing defense as the season moves on? Are they there to run routes and try and get open? Yeah, sure. But what's the upside? What's the realistic contribution level like?
Yeah, Nebraska's going to have to get creative, and they tried to get creative against Illinois. They called the reverse for Jaden Doss and then checked out of it because of a defensive look that the Illini were showing. And we saw a reverse for Lloyd in the season opener at Minnesota. Lloyd has caught a pass. Malachi Coleman caught his first pass against Illinois. Doss was just back from a broken arm that sidelined him for most of the first half of the season. So I think the production that they're going to put up in the second half is going to be much more significant than the first half. But at the end of all of this, they're still true freshmen, and Nebraska is going to ask a lot of their receivers in learning the offensive system so that they don't just telegraph to the defense what they're doing when they put these guys out there. It's pretty easy to diagnose that if Malachi Coleman's on the field and he only knows 10% of your offensive system, it's pretty easy as a defense to figure out what you're looking at, what you're going to do when he goes out there, or the same thing with Lloyd or with Doss. So that's why Nebraska has been so intent in the first half of this year in making sure that these guys understand the full complexity of the offense before they send them out there to play a bunch of reps. And they're now getting to the place where there's not even a choice. These guys are ready or they're not, and it's going to show up in games.
I mean, whenever you look at Nebraska's current wide receiver room, the guys that Nebraska has right now, they combine for a total of, let's do some quick math. You have 2 from Fleeks, 20 from Kemp, so 22 there, plus 7 from Bullock, 29, 30 with 1 from Tyhan, 31 from Malachi Coleman. So they combine for 31 receptions on the year. 20 of those come from Billy Kemp.
So the other option is to target Fedoni 37 times during a game and complete about 12 of those?
Well, they've been very fortunate that Fedoni has become the player that they hoped he would be when he made that big announcement that he was coming to Nebraska a couple of years ago. Nebraska fans have had to wait through one knee injury and then another knee injury and then hoping and praying that that potential would be realized. And I think that for the most part, over the last, 3 games or so, you are starting to see that he is a threat. They didn't really target him a lot or use him a lot in that Minnesota game, as I recall, or at least he wasn't as big a factor as he has been. Mm-hmm. And he has been the reliable go-to. Billy Kemp has also done a nice job in making some catches at key times. And he's emerged, I think, as the hopeful player that they had when he transferred from Virginia. But Fedoni, I think, has been as good as advertised. And they needed him to be because they don't have those receivers.
Yeah, Kemp is the conundrum with him is that he's just not really a big play guy. His catch against Michigan that went for 29 yards was the longest catch of his career. And that's after being a key piece for 5 seasons at Virginia. So they've used him, and what Nebraska ideally would like to have him at is a short yardage guy who's tough over the middle. He's a compact target that if you're an accurate quarterback and you put it in the spot, he's going to catch the ball. He's going to be able to move the chains, but you can't throw over the top to a guy who's, I think he's listed at 5'9" and is maybe an inch or two shorter than that. So that's where Fedoni comes in. That's where they could have used Xavier Betts, and it would have just been a huge piece in this offense because he could go over the top with you. And for what they had left going into the Illinois game, Marcus Washington was that guy. Mm-hmm. And you saw him on the second play of the game catch a 38, 39-yard pass from the 1-yard line. He's the guy that Heinrich Harburg would look to 9 times out of 10 in that situation where they needed a big play to get out of the shadow of the end zone. So can Malachi be that guy? Can Jaden Doss, who's listed at 5'11", be that guy? We'll see. I think the more likely scenario is that they just really don't have that piece on their offensive arsenal at the wide receiver position any longer. And if they're going to go and try to stretch a defense, it's probably going to have to be with the tight end. And Fedoni is of course the most athletic option there among the tight ends. So really big second half of the season coming up for the kid from Council Bluffs.
Or maybe play Jeff Sims at wide receiver.
There you go. Let's play him at safety.
Might as well. 2-way player.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's
off the top rope again.
Is he like on a college fantasy football team where you're trying to get 2-way points or something? You are trying to get Jeff Sims on the field.
He's a great athlete. And you've seen that thrown around by Husker fans a whole bunch on social media and on post-game call-in shows that Schmidt and I do. People saying, let's get Jeff Sims in the field. He can play tight end. Well, why not running back? Why not wide receiver? Get him out there.
I think from just a size standpoint, he makes more sense at wide receiver than he does at running back. But
we saw the Colorado game, and his hands are a question mark at this point. Come off the top rope again.
It's really a position that you've got to put a lot of work and time into to master before you can play it.
When did Bobby Newcomb make that change? Remember there was a quarterback battle between
99.
Did he make it during the season, or did he make it because it was Eric Crouch and Bobby Newcomb, 1A, 1B at quarterback, and it looked like it was going to be Newcomb was the guy, and there was some angst in the Crouch camp, and things obviously turned around. But did Newcomb make a full-time move to wingback wide receiver during the season?
He did. It was probably
probably a bye week, right?
No. he showed up at a press conference think he was all suited up, and he said Bobby Newcomb wingback because Crouch had gotten touches every which way that 99 season. I remember they played Cal, and Keith Jackson was doing the game, and Crouch caught one, ran for one, and caught, ran, and then threw for one.
He did throw for some touchdowns.
Yeah, and
that was an interesting start to the season because that was basically Eric Crouch saying, nobody's going to touch me and stop me no matter what. Put somebody in my way, and I'm going to run them over. And he did that against Iowa. And what was the very beginning for Kirk Ferentz right there? That 1999 season, yeah. And there was Eric Crouch on the field at Kinnick Stadium running over an Iowa DB. I can't believe we're talking about this in 2023. But yeah, Newcomb, man, really have to dig into the archives there. I think he switched, midstream.
Game 3.
Right. Different kind of athlete, and really he was a wingback, not necessarily stretching the field, but they could run him on reverses. And then he got a little more adept at routes, and he was a great punt returner. Mm-hmm. So, hey, Jeff Sims, punt returns? What do you think, Elijah?
Hey, I mean, you saw the vision the first 2 games of the year.
Play the bingo card here and put him down here.
Alvano is struggling to have his.
Can he kick?
Yeah.
What's his pass pro like? I mean, what's his? How would he do, Elijah, when it comes to the arm length of being able to fend off an edge rusher?
If he could put on 100 pounds in this bye week, he would be ideal for what they're looking at for left tackle.
Yeah,
we'll just take him to Casa de Schmidt with that steak cookout, and we'll just keep feeding him red meat. It'll be all right.
We'll get him on the field.
I've done some research in here. I can't get a game started because 99. A little bit before the modern era in terms of the internet, but he did play at both quarterback and wide receiver in the 99 season. I can't get a tally on games started at each position, but he was 11 of 19 through the air in 99, in addition to 19 receptions for 238 yards in 99. So he did play both positions in the 99 season.
Yeah, I remember 99 pretty well. Made a lot of those home and away trips as a second junior season in the broadcasting college, and that was a Austin road trip. That was a trip to Lawrence where Newcomb put on his Superman cape and had a game-winning touchdown and punt return.
We didn't talk about Bobby Newcomb this much when he was playing.
Should we get him on the show?
I brought it up. I'll admit.
He's coaching in Arizona. He's a good high school football coach. He's got a couple sons playing college football. So we can do a whole episode on Bobby Newcomb.
Bobby Newcomb. And just for fun, let's get Eric on.
Yeah. I know we can do that.
Awkward.
Get them together.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Hey, Bobby, this is Eric. Remember him? Eric, remember Bobby. Average Joe Sports Show rolls forward. The AJ Sports Show is where you find us on YouTube. Subscribe to it. Give us a follow on X/Twitter, the AJ Sports Pod. Guys, last thought here on Rhule. We'll get into some games as well from the weekend to look at. But Rhule was asked about Van Poppel. Riley, of course, making that monster play. He is seeing more and more snaps, and he's one of the number of young guys on the defensive line that keep getting mixed in with some of the older guard. But as a whole, Pot Roast's kids have played high-level football. I did love the field trip to the spa over the weekend that was on social media. You got to take care of them big dogs. The feet are so important, and everyone got the old pedicure going.
Sorry, I'm just looking at the box score from the 1999 Nebraska-Iowa game to start the season, and Newcomb started that game at quarterback and committed 3 first-half turnovers before Crouch came in as the freight train. Yeah, spa week for the Nebraska D linemen. They got pedicures, and they all we'll get to see their toenails next week.
Anyone done that? Have you gone?
Looked up pictures of the Nebraska defensive
line. No, not feet.
No.
Have you gone? Have you gone and gotten a pedicure before?
Yes, they're freaking awesome.
They're wonderful. I take the lovely wife to go, and I watch the folks who do the pedicure, and they kind of are frightened of my wife's feet. But they still go ahead and dive in.
Whenever I'm there, I always make sure that they do my eyebrows, too, because they have a lot of fun with it, seeing me squirm in pain as they wax my eyebrows. They have fun with it. I do it for them,
Can we talk about Bobby Newcomb some more?
Bill doesn't like showing people his feet, is what I've learned here.
I can't imagine Charlie McBride was taking his boys to the the spa back in the mid-1990s, but
we'll ask him.
Times have changed.
Apparently so, yeah.
I believe
NIL deals with pedicure shops and manicure shops.
And we maybe have to get a clarification from this next week. We'll ask Matt Rhule on Monday. But I think that the scene that you saw with Terrence Knighton and the D linemen getting their feet massaged and all prettied up, I believe that happened in the Nebraska facility, the new building.
Really?
Yeah, I think if you look at the background, and I will be happily proven wrong on this, but I don't want to go too far.
The new facility's got its own spot to
Yeah, I don't want to go too far down this
dogs?
road. They may have left the building. When I looked at it at first, I thought they were in house and brought in the
crew,
the feet specialists.
Wow. Okay.
No? That's pretty good. Well, time will tell with it, but anywho, that took a left turn.
Back to 1999.
or back to Van Poppel and what Nebraska's got with him. But Bill, a guy that is really kind of showing no fear, and he's going to be big for this defense moving forward.
Well, a couple of things. You go back to the beginning of the season when we noticed in that Minnesota game that Nebraska played 25 guys on defense, and they followed up week after week after week, that more and more guys are getting a chance to play. So you know that they are in tune with what's going on in practice day in and day out. They're not just standing around because they know they're going to get an opportunity. It may not be a ton of snaps, but they're going to get key snaps and significant snaps. And Van Poppel had arguably the biggest play in the game on Friday night, right?
Good call.
And secondly, he is showing his potential. But that message that it sends, not just to young players that you got a chance to come in and play significantly, you Texas high school football players, which is so valuable to what Matt Rhule is trying to do, and I mentioned it earlier. Van Poppel was a big star down in Texas. And when he committed to Nebraska, it was a big deal. The Van Poppel name has been around Texas for decades because of his dad's major league career, as good or bad as it may have been. But when he signed with Nebraska, that was a big deal. And to see him going up there and playing right away and having an impact, that message is being sent to those players down there that Nebraska is a place for you to come up and play right away. And Matt Rhule, as promised, will take care of you.
Yeah, we'll do a segment on Todd Van Poppel later in the season, and not the facility. Pulled it back up on T Knight's Twitter.
I just did the same.
Yeah, they're at a
location,
a pedicure location.
Well, what we need there's one little scene from the live video that he posted where he briefly goes outside. We need the GeoGuessr guy. Have you seen him online? The guy that gets like the one quick still image of somewhere in the world and can guess it like on the spot.
Impressive.
We need him to come figure out which nail salon in Lincoln this is. I'm thinking it might be North 27th Street vibes, but I can't really get a firm placement on the background.
It does have a North 27th Street vibe. Whether it is or not, it's got that vibe.
Well played.
That message is also being sent to recruits around.
Oh, wow, Mitch.
But while we're talking young defensive linemen, we did not get an update today, at least as far as I could tell, on Princewill,
yeah.
who had to go for an MRI, at least according to what we were hearing on Saturday, that he was going to have an MRI on Sunday, which would lead you to believe not season-ending. That'd be huge. Princewill, from what I've seen in the games, is Nebraska's best pure pass rusher at the moment. I don't think he's close to being the all-around defensive lineman Nebraska needs from him, or at least outside linebacker, however you want to define him.
He's been a great freshman.
But he's been a great freshman, and he has been the most consistent at getting one-on-one pass rush wins on the outside. He's got a great inside move. He's got a great dip on the outside. He's going to be someone to watch in Nebraska's pass rush moving forward, and he's a guy that Nebraska's really going to need back by the time Maryland comes to town in early November. So I'll be curious to see what his health status is moving forward, because based on what I've seen, I don't think anyone holds a candle to him in terms of being able to get pass rush wins from that outside.
Jamari's been good, too. He's not a young guy, but Jamari's looked really good, and he's been able to play with his hand in the dirt, so to speak, on the line of scrimmage, not just standing up. And Nebraska's had so many guys the last few years that absolutely are physical specimens, and those guys, you're seeing a Butler perform. You've seen Gunnarsson do well with his opportunity, to your point about important snaps, Bill. And then the young guys are getting coached up and developed to the point, Mitch, where between Lenhart, Princewill, and Van Poppel. I mean, it's a luxury right now for Nebraska. I'm not crowning or anointing any of them. I'm just saying, look what they've already contributed so far through this first half, and you'd presume they just keep getting better, knocking on wood that they stay healthy, that they can really be, a force moving forward against the run, keep that standard going if you're a Nebraska fan, but also you're going to have to get after the quarterback, to Elijah's point.
Yeah, there are others in that group too, Sua, Lefotu, who are going to be big pieces for Nebraska down the road. Machesak, they like him. So, it was a group of defensive linemen that Nebraska signed that the Huskers thought was top-notch, right there with the receivers as the best group in this class. And they're going to, we'll see over the years ahead, but good signs at the beginning here.
Let's get into some games for the weekend. This is the Average Joe Sports Show. YouTube is where you can subscribe to us, the AJ Sports Show, the Twitter handle /X, the AJ Sports Pod. Bill Doleman and Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. 3 games pretty much on my radar. Could sprinkle in another. And you've got USC Notre Dame. You have Wisconsin and Iowa that are there. And then the game of the Pac-12 is Oregon and Washington. Guys, we'll start, though, in the Big Ten. Not a great slate for the Big Ten. Madtown, the place to be, as Iowa heads to Wisconsin, your de facto West title game.
Great. On pay-per-view?
Let me know how it is. 6-3, here we come.
I think Wisconsin has, we talked about
too
over
much
the weekend. And they're at home. I think Wisconsin has probably emerged as the favorite on that side of the conference. It's unfortunate that it is so East-heavy this year in the league with Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. But if you're looking at the 2 best right now in position to play for the Big Ten title, then it would come down to this matchup. Wisconsin, again, their losses to Washington State.
It's
a good football team, right? And for the most part, they've been a little under the radar too. In Luke Fickell's first year, after media days, died down a little bit, and the whole thing about what their offense is going to look like and who's on their staff and everything, for the most part, they've just kind of been on cruise control. And outside of Washington State, things have gone fairly well for them. They've not gotten near the attention that Nebraska has gotten for its ups and its downs in the road of Matt Rhule's first season. So for Wisconsin, being at home and the way things have gone, and the drive for 325 that is, everybody in Iowa fixated this season, I think it's been a relatively carefree season for the Badgers, and that's why I think they win at home.
What's interesting is that neither of these teams is ranked, and Iowa's 5-1, Wisconsin's 4-1. I think in a normal year in college football, both of those teams would be ranked with those records. But there's such little faith in who Iowa and Wisconsin are this year that after one loss, it was, okay, that's it. Eliminate them from the conversation nationally. So what they're playing for this week, I think, is the ability to get back into some kind of a conversation, to gain some kind of relevance again. Also, a factor that tells you that these are 2 teams that don't have a lot of respect, at least for their offenses. The over-under on this one's 36.
My God.
You're looking at a 20-18 game that hits the over here. A 21-17 game goes over. And I will say, I don't think it's off. I think I might take the under on that one. I have to check the weather in Madison this weekend, but Iowa's offense, as we've documented many times, is just terrible. And Wisconsin, they've lost a running back, Ches Malusi. Still have some decent things going on. I like what I've seen at times from Tanner Mordecai, but they're going against a great Iowa defense. So I definitely like the Badgers in this one. I don't know if they win by 10. That's the spread. I think I'd take Iowa if you give me 10 points. But I like Wisconsin to win and take command of the Big Ten West and move to 5-1, and potentially have a Big Ten West team, again, ranked as we go into the middle of October.
And Iowa is playing with a backup quarterback now. That certainly hurts an inept offense already. I do think as fun as the drive for 325 tracker kind of is week after week, that point total, what did they score, and the 30 snaps and no points they scored at Penn State, I think that has been to the detriment of the appreciation of whatever Iowa does well, defensively or whatever. I think that has become a bit of a running joke that has run them over this season, that Ferentz contract and the point total, and that's what people look at, that they don't appreciate really, that is a pretty good defensive football team. Mm-hmm. And the joke is the headliner for Iowa football this season.
Their run game and offensive line, much better than it's been. Johnson ran for a boatload of yards. The real winner is whoever gets out of this game with a valiant effort and can finish second in the West. I loved this commentary on social media leading up to this. So, all right, do you play tough enough to, all right, you gave them your best shot. You didn't win in Madison. Great. Whoever loses this game doesn't have to play Michigan the first week of December.
Yeah.
And get annihilated.
Well, I mean, and it could be Penn State. But Michigan looks like the best team in the country right now, so we'll say that. But they still have to play, and it's at Penn State.
Mm-hmm. We were talking a little bit before the show started about some snack foods, and I'd like to nominate a snack food that represents this game. It's regular, just salted Pringles. Because there's so many other snack foods I'd rather be eating than regular, just normal Pringles. Like, give me any of the flavored
boring,
Pringles.
but still effective.
Pretty boring, but you know what? If I have a can of Pringles in front of me that is regular, unflavored, you better believe I'm going to snack on them. And I'm going to check out the Wisconsin-Iowa game. I'm probably going to be watching more of the Washington-Oregon game, but I'll still snack on that game just a little bit. I think that's the perfect snack food to represent this game.
No.
Media food and chips and snacks, and Bill is scarred by Pringles.
I mean, I think
Mitch has a hankering for Cheez-Its. I mean, it's...
I think I got a snack food representation for all the games that we could be talking about today. So,
and give me any sort of cashews.
What's the spinach and artichoke dip game of the week?
See, it kind of depends on how you feel about spinach artichoke dip, because I'm not super high on it. It's fine. There's a lot of other dips I'd rather have.
It's totally Oregon, Washington.
I would love to know how you would assess the UMass Penn State game and what food represents it.
Ooh, man. You put me on the spot. I wasn't expecting to talk UMass Penn State today.
I'm thinking Old Maid's at the bottom of a popcorn bowl. But
I think it's some of that bran cereal.
It's gonna be candy corn.
I eat bran cereal every single day.
No, just like
candy corn's not a bad shout. I like that.
I love candy corn.
You're it.
I like candy corn too, and I like Penn State because they're a good football team to watch.
It's peanuts and candy corn together.
Terrible.
No.
Oh wow.
The salt and the sweet mixed, not a fan.
No, I do enjoy that.
Candy corn is good in extremely small doses for me, in my opinion. I realize a lot of people have strong feelings about candy corn, but for me it's good in small doses only in the month of October, and you can eat like a handful, and then after you've had that, it's just horrendous. But
and that's going to be the UMass and Penn State game. Is you're going to watch the first quarter, you're going to watch Penn State play pretty well, but you don't want it for a full 3 hours.
I'm listening.
You don't want candy corn for a full 3 hours. You're not going to want to watch Penn State UMass.
There are a number of Big Ten games that fit the same description that you're talking about right there. Indiana, Michigan, same way. Ohio State, Purdue, you might be talking more candy corns there. Michigan State, Rutgers, I think that's a candy corn game also. So it's October. Let's get it going.
See, I'm trying to find the Dots Pretzel game of the week, which I think is probably Oregon, Washington. Exactly.
Yeah. Dots Pretzels, pretty good. The Munchies mix, where you get the
that's Pac-12 after dark.
No, see, the Munchies mix is solid but overrated, and therefore I'm going USC Notre Dame on the Munchies mix. I'll enjoy it, don't get me wrong, but a little bit overrated, that matchup.
Pac-12 after dark is a type of snack that is illegal in the state of Nebraska.
It is.
If you're wondering, the Pac-12 after dark games this week, well, it's not really Pac-12. We have Boise State at Colorado State. That's at 7:45 Central Time. And then at 9 o'clock, we have San Diego State at Hawaii.
Ooh.
Who's playing in the late-night ACC network game? Because I want to watch that after what happened last week.
That is, I don't think we have one technically. Duke NC State is at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
I know we spent some time on the last episode talking about Miami and the ridiculous play that happened for the Hurricanes where they didn't down the ball and then fumbled it and then lost the game on basically a Hail Mary. So Miami, not to derail this conversation about the Big Ten and snack foods, is going to North Carolina. And I wonder, in the estimation of you guys in this room, how big of a game that is for Mario Cristobal to try to get everyone, because as this week has gone on since we last talked, the conversation about what Miami did and how bad that was for Mario Cristobal has snowballed in what I've heard. And he needs to change the conversation. I think they tried to change the conversation by announcing a big recruiting win on Sunday night that they maybe have been holding back in the bag until something was needed to change the topic. That didn't work. They're still talking about Cristobal and the decision not to down the ball. So they've got to win at UNC.
They're desperate too.
Yeah.
I mean, they're 4-2 going into this thing.
Yeah.
So
the signs in the stadium, is that North Carolina?
It is.
Yeah, okay. The signs and the reminders at Carolina for what they didn't do will be magnificent. It will be up there with Notre Dame counting to 10 and not being able to count to 11. I mean, there will be constant reminders as to what went down, right? And on a serious note, I have a hard time. I shouldn't say hard time. I got to believe that what transpired at the end of that game has resulted in a loss of confidence in that locker room for the players toward their leadership, especially when they not only replay that game over and over and over, but then they go back and show the Stanford-Oregon game from a couple of years ago when the exact same thing happened. If you're a player in that locker room and you've seen that has got to shake you a little bit as to the direction.
Well, did you see the lip reading of the Miami offensive lineman on the bench?
oh, he's crying.
He's crying, and then the lip readers went down, and he's saying, "What the F are we doing?" That's what he's saying on the sideline. Whenever Georgia Tech still has the ball, they haven't lost the game yet. And he's sitting on the bit, what the F? He didn't say
That's what
F.
everyone said. Everyone had some version of that comment.
Well, I sent a text in the group chat between us four and just said, oh my God, Miami just blew it. Because everyone knew it immediately.
I'm just glad they have Fairbury on the mind.
Yes.
When they talk about the F.
That's Bill Doleman, Mitch Sherman, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and it's the Average Joe Sports Show. And who you feel in Oregon or Washington? I think Washington's got to win at home, don't they? In a kind of a high-scoring affair.
Yeah, that's a good.
It's gonna be a great ball game. 2:30 kick.
7 versus 8. Michael Penix versus Bo Nix, two of the hottest teams in the country. I mean, if you take those preseason expectations out of what the rankings are right now, who's played better than Oregon and Washington to this point, other than Michigan? So
That's about it. Those are three.
I probably go with the Huskies because of the home field. That's a tough place to play in Seattle, but I'm not overly confident there. I see Washington's a 3-point favorite in that one. I'd probably take Oregon if you want to give me 3 points.
And there's two possible options here for snack foods to represent this game as I think more and more. It's either Flamin' Hot Cheetos or nacho cheese Doritos. One of the two. Both of those are
You need a little spice.
No, they're just the snack foods in my life that once I pick them up, I cannot put them down. And that's how this game is going to be with all the offense that we're going to see. I need to check the updated total in this game to see if it's as high as I remember. That 67 points is the total, which I think it was even a little higher earlier in the week. But a lot of points will be scored, a lot of offense. This is going to be the game of the day. You're not going to be able to put it down once you flip it on. It's either nacho cheese Doritos or Flamin' Hot Cheetos to me.
I like Kalen DeBoer. I would have been very happy if Trev Alberts had looked that way, and he was on the Nebraska sideline. I had a chance to cover Sioux Falls when he was there and just running roughshod over Division II. Just thought he was really impressive. They landed a great transfer in Penix. However, I think Dan Lanning was one of the great hires in college football, coming from Georgia and bringing an SEC national championship mentality to that program. That, they've had some great coaches. With Chip Kelly, for whatever you want to say about whatever Cristobal did.
He was good at Oregon.
But for the most part, I think that he is a different breed of coach that program has not had. And maybe it's the defense. I just think that there's an attitude at Oregon that has been missing that might be the difference from where they have been to where they could be, and that'll be in the college football playoff.
And I'll be the first. I doubted that hire whenever they made it. Dan Lanning to Oregon. I was not confident in his ability to make it work in the Pac-12, and I'll be the first to say I was dead wrong. Dan Lanning has been a fantastic hire for the Ducks. Just as you kind of said, that the mentality and the edge that he's brought that Oregon team, they didn't really have it under Chip Kelly. They have that edge now. That is a team that plays like it has a chip on its shoulder.
USC Notre Dame, love this ball game. Remember, it's almost 20 years ago, the Bush push, and what a shootout that was in South Bend. SC comes in with a lot of question marks on defense. Notre Dame, this is the tail end of what a march they've been on. I mean, it started out with their game against Ohio State. They survived and kind of thrived against Duke. They got knocked off last week by Louisville, really good squad. And now, okay, here comes SC into touchdown Jesus. And this thing's always about turnovers to me when I think of USC Notre Dame and quarterback play, and you're going to see two of the best there are in Notre Dame and Caleb Williams at USC. And do you think USC's kind of due to have another bad performance in a big game defensively?
Yeah, I think they've had bad performances over and over, and they're due to lose a game.
Because of it.
Yeah, everybody left on USC's schedule, if you look at it, is better than the teams that USC's beaten to this point. And there's a lot of negativity, a shocking amount of negativity around a 6-0 USC team that's got a Heisman winner who's playing like a Heisman winner, but the defense has just been so bad and was, again, that way, and USC just escaping against Arizona the other night. So, yeah, I think this is the game where things catch up with USC. They're giving up 421 yards a game. Notre Dame's not playing all that great on offense, but I think they can get well. Sam Hartman, that Notre Dame quarterback who is one half of a great QB matchup, I think he'll do just enough to get Notre Dame over the top, give USC their first loss of the season, and then we can stop talking about USC as a playoff contender, because I don't think that the Pac-12 is getting two. For as good as the Pac-12 is this year, I don't think they're getting two in. And those teams are going to start beating each other up. And you may have a one-loss team that comes out of the Pac-12 as a playoff participant, but it's not going to be a team with a non-conference loss. So.
This is an important game for Notre Dame. Losing last week against Louisville, that's another one.
Yeah, and Clemson still looms, too.
And they had to come back against Duke.
Well, they lost, that. They lost at home to Ohio State in the way that they did. They lose again at home. You're looking at a precipice for the rest of the season that may not be very good for Marcus Freeman and company. I mean, it could go another 2 or maybe even 3 losses if they don't win this game in South Bend on Saturday. The fan base will start to sour. As much as I think he's a great young coach, people will start to question that. And I think that this is a must-win situation for Notre Dame. They're not going to the playoff. That's the only thing that they play for every year. But beating USC at home and Caleb Williams, especially the way USC had to escape, their defense is not good. It's right there for Notre Dame to win a marquee matchup, not necessarily a marquee game, but a marquee matchup with USC.
And I agree with you, Mitch. You look at USC. This could be the first of maybe 3 regular season losses when you look at what's left on their schedule.
Yeah, it gets rough from here for USC. So I understand where a lot of that skepticism is coming from. It's just interesting to me when you kind of juxtapose it with the way that things go in this part of the country, and you talk about Nebraska and how ecstatic people would be to have the kind of situation that USC's in. But, hey, it's year 2 for Lincoln Riley, and he comes with immediate expectations to compete and contend for a national championship. And USC went to the conference championship last year, so they're just at a different place, of course, in the trajectory of their program. I do see the road getting rough for the Trojans in October and November.
They host Utah next week following the trip to South Bend.
Who's had their number?
They'll go to Cal. Cal looks better. They host Washington in November. They go to Oregon. They end with UCLA.
Yeah, That's maybe an 8-4 team, 9-3.
They hope it's 8-4.
Can I just say right now, I think USC gets the win this weekend. I think they have too much offense. I got 37-31 in a higher scoring game.
Okay.
I got USC. I don't think they finally get exposed until November, where they probably lose 2. I think it's
2 or 3 out of 4.
I think it's a 10-2 football team from USC. It's a tough schedule, but you got the Heisman winner and you got one of the greatest offensive minds in college football.
What snack is this? Funyuns?
We talked about this. This is Munchies.
Oh, Munchies. Okay.
This is Munchies. It's solid. You're never going to complain about Munchies. But at the end of the day, there's just some better snacks out there. Not a whole bunch, but there's some better snacks.
It's munchies with Bud Heavy, all right? That's what it is.
That's a good combo, yeah. I'm with that.
It's Elijah Herbel and Chris Schmidt, Bill Doleman, and Mitch Sherman, the Average Joe Sports Show Podcast, episode number 8. And you're welcome to find us on Twitter and also find the show on YouTube. Real easy to do when you look at where Nebraska's at bye week. We've gone off the yellow brick road a little bit with some snacking takes, some talk about pedicures.
It's a bye week.
And, we stuck in there on some of the Matt Rhule press conference. Guys, we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for tuning in to the Average Joe Sports Show.